60620. Thank you for watching my video. You can catch me on these social media platforms. And if you want to see some great art, hit my DeviantArt page up. And finally, support me on Patreon. Thanks. What's up, guys? What's up? It is me, Crimson 60620, and it looks like the mic is good. I'm seeing the levels pop off. Let me actually do one thing. I want to do one thing. And actually, before we get started, I do want to make sure that we are sharing this video. And I want to actually ask everybody, please, um, go to my YouTube channel and see the part of the conversation and see if that whets your appetite for seeing. Let me close that off. Whets your appetite about seeing the video that I did with. Hold on. All right, testing everything good. You guys can actually hear it. Great. It's me actually on a video that I had with this one guy. It's a great video. It's a great part of the conversation. I did premiere today on YouTube. Yeah, I am actually. Hold on one second, guys. I am actually trying to get the notifications out there. Sorry about this. Thank you guys for patiently waiting while I actually share this stream. Letting everybody know that we are live. We are live. And we're doing some Conan tonight. So, I want to say that tonight it was pretty difficult for me to get home and actually do some streaming tonight. And I'll tell you why. For the last week now, I've had issues with trying to get to a part of my system where I need to actually do my job. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to get access to that system. And work has been pretty much of a big slog as of late. And so, I had 2 days off during the middle of last week. So, it's officially been about a week since I've had that time off. Since I've been locked out this part of the system. And it's work hasn't been fulfilling as it normally should. So, I'm pressing on though. I am, trying to make sure I keep busy with my time. They have me doing something else. But as you guys know, which is bad in any narrative story, I've been doing videos, and I just recently did Always a Bigger Fish video review. And I'm somebody who thinks about shit that I read and information that I digest, and try try to A/B test it. Basically, try to A/B test if my conclusions are right versus somebody else's conclusions. And then we had a conversation about, well, let's play this video. It's a short video. I promise you, it's a short video, and we can actually go into this.
A scientist placed 4 monkeys in a room with a stepladder upon which there was a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey went to climb the ladder, the other monkeys in the room were sprayed with cold water. After
Okay, so interesting proposal. Let's watch it.
a while, each time a monkey went for the bananas, the others would attack it to prevent it from doing so. The monkeys learnt to never climb the ladder. But then, one of the monkeys was removed, and a new monkey wearing a raincoat was introduced. Naturally, this monkey went for the bananas, and it was customarily attacked and prevented from doing so by the others. This new monkey learnt not to climb the ladder. So when another monkey was
Alright, so that's the interesting premise. So let's go ahead and finish watching the video.
substituted in and made for the bananas, all the others attacked it, including the one in the raincoat, despite the fact that it had never been sprayed with cold water. A third monkey was substituted in, and then a fourth final monkey. And still, whenever a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the others would prevent it from doing so, even though none of them had ever been sprayed with the cold water. When asked why this was, one monkey said, "That's just the way it is."
Alright, so let's bring
See,
us to
supposedly.
the actual real video that we're doing today. And we're gonna have that conversation.
All right.
So we're gonna pause it right here. And I'm gonna tell my interesting ass anecdote that you guys are gonna fucking love. So for one, it's really just sad, and I'll tell you why it's sad. Because so many times we see people that actually fall into the category of, well, that's just the way things are. And that's a shit reason. That is a horrible fucking ass reason to actually allow for something to stand. It is fucking frightening. It is quite literally fucking frightening to actually have to deal with people who, well, that's just the way things are. Do you have no fucking morals or goals for yourself? Do you have no fucking idea that you can make the motherfucking system change for you? They may have the money, but we have the people. God damn. I had an argument with a person today. Now, the discussion started with Cardi B. Now she has 29 cars. And I said, that's exploitative. There's no reason why she should have it. Well, it's her money. She should do whatever she wants. And the conversation always turns into, well, rich people pay more taxes than you do. But it doesn't hit them the same that it hits me. And the conversation is, well, they worked that hard, so they deserve it. No, they didn't. Most people who are rich got lucky breaks, either the genetic lottery or the lottery of probability. And I'm not saying that they don't work hard. Please don't misconstrue me discouraging their hard work. But what about the people that work hard and don't make it? What, are they just lazy? Do they just not know how to... Do they not just know how to life? Quite literally, you have the people that have made it to some status in life that like to sit back and say, well, if you're not where I'm at, then you're the problem. If you haven't made it to these upper echelons of, you know, high success, then it's your fault. What gall and temerity. Oh yeah, I needed to upgrade that sword. What gall and temerity that you have that you actually feel that because you are the reason why You're the reason why. Everything because of what you did. All the great decisions that you made is the reason why you have such success. Maybe, just maybe, you got lucky. Fortune favors the brave and also the prepared. So, yeah, maybe you did work hard to get the position that you were at, but that doesn't discount the amount of luck. And I say that because I see so many people that have made it look down and turn their noses down at the poor plebes. Well, I had the chance. You can have the chance. You should have been where I'm at. You should have actually did what I did. But so many people do. And why am I bringing this up? Well, let's talk to somebody who puts down other people. And I really don't have a problem with Destiny. He seems like an okay guy. But he tends to have this mentality of if you're poor, it's your fault. And I'm not okay with that because that's generally ignoring that there are problems where not everybody can overcome, no matter how talented they are. But let's continue.
Doing today?
Good about yourself.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. I'm not sure. I have so many people screaming at me on Twitter. I'm not even sure what we're talking about. So
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll start. I'll just say the reason I got involved with you in any way on Twitter is because I often see your tweets, and they're almost whenever they go into any of the progressive to leftist area, it's usually quite antagonistic. And
Yep.
I sort of took the bait. Is basically what happened there.
It's
But
not entirely
anyways.
bait. I mean most of what I say. I'm very curious if there's a particular tweet that I've said that you take issue with or anything you want to go over. Like, yeah, we can do it.
Oh, I can't even remember 3 days in the past. So.
Okay.
All right, so uh, this is what I mean. Yes, Destiny is really a shit poster, and that's not to take away from what he says or the conversations that he have, but he's really the whole adage of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. No, that's not always the case. Quite literally, when you look at Destiny from the aspect of he hates to be imposed, be it from the right or the left. He hates for people to tell him what he should actually believe. And regardless of what you would think about certain political views, it's quite literally his whole stick is don't tell me what I believe. Don't tell me what is quote unquote right or wrong. Let me decide for my own, which is admirable. Definitely is. It is definitely admirable, and you don't want to actually live in a society where you want to oppress people. But he is not some bastion of leftist thought. He's just an attack dog for his own self interest, which is kind of centrist. But let's continue.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of a joke, not entirely though.
Sure.
So earlier you were talking about Hassan and the co-op thing, and I thought that might be an interesting topic of conversation because I think you had talked about how owning a channel is owning capital, and I would say the business, the capital you actually own would be any business you have registered. The channel is if I'm not mistaken, actually owned by YouTube, is it not?
On a very technical level, yeah. It depends on what you mean by channel, and it depends on what you mean by ownership.
No, the channels are owned by YouTube. That's why they can pull your shit without even telling you any fucking reason why. YouTube owns the channel, and you have a channel on the you serve at the pleasure of YouTube. the thing about it is, you didn't make YouTube if they wanted to for any reason. It's in the terms of service. If they wanted to for any reason, they can pull your shit and not give you any fucking reason why. That's what YouTube is. But let's continue.
I guess we would have to start getting into like when you say channel, do you mean like the intellectual property because that's owned by you, or do you mean the servers that host it?
I mean like the actual channel. Yeah.
Like the web space is owned by YouTube. You own the intellectual property. The servers are probably ran by Google or Amazon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, where I should sit so that I'm not there. I'm not covered by the text. Anyways, yeah, I'm just in my opinion, like when we start talking about like what's morally required of somebody who's advocating for these types of things, I wonder what your opinion on people who, I mean, underlyingly speaking, pretty much everything is individualistically does come down to an individual's morals, but I don't necessarily think to myself like, hey, I think that I need to morally police people into socialism, and I kind of think that that's not productive. I think that it's not great to be talking about morals, and I guess if we're talking more about the material conditions of things, then we're kind of, in my opinion, then we start getting into a more interesting conversation. And I was thinking maybe we could start with that kind of a thing.
Sure, we can.
Okay, so there are several different reasons to actually want to have a socialistic society. One of which is to fucking make sure that, you know, people don't die in the motherfucking streets. I mean, like, I'm just saying, you know, if you want to make an argument, maybe it's a good thing for, you know, society that people aren't dying in the streets because they hungry or because they don't have a roof over their heads. I don't know, just maybe. Maybe that's good for society. But let's continue.
It's we can do that. It's very frustrating for me to start a conversation when so much of my issue with left-leaning people is that every analysis that they give of capitalism and then the comparisons that they make to an idealized socialized system usually start from a moral foundation. So it's a little frustrating that we have to leave those by the wayside, because most conversations typically start with any sort of surplus value that you're scraping from a laborer is exploitative in a highly immoral fashion. And that's usually like where the conversation starts. So it's like, well, now I just want to analyze, like, because usually this is my line. Usually I say, oh, well, economic systems are descriptive. These don't really, like, you know, this person makes $2 an hour. Like, that's not in and of itself inherently evil. Like, that's just an economic analysis. Like, there is no morality baked into this.
That's an observation.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean.
So, just going in, I hate to fucking sound like I'm picking apart. Quite literally, the whole thing of if you make it, you deserve to make it is also a moralistic argument. It is quite saying because you have this economic might, it makes you right. That's the whole basis of the whole capitalist system. That's what makes it work. That's the function of the system. And for you to actually say, well, no, it's not a moral issue, morals are something that we decide. Morals are something that we set. Quite literally, what we decide is moral, be it for many different reasons: economic, social, just plain whatever tickles our fucking fancy. That's something that we set. And we built it into the rest of our systems. But let's continue.
And we can, I mean, if you want to talk about, I guess, like the general ideas of co-ops or whatever, we can, sure.
Well, you know, I don't necessarily think that co-ops equal socialism. And I watched your debate with Ben Burgess, and I felt like it really got talked about a lot on as if that is socialism. And I think that a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of different forms of socialism. And if I were to sit here and tell you, like, I believe in X type of socialism or Y type of socialism, I'm not going to be able to go down the path and tell you that I have no objections anywhere along the line. And that, I think that's, we start to get into hypothetical stuff. And what I would maybe like to come from here is that I sort of come to socialism from a criticism like Marx. I come like the sort of, and forgive me, I'm not normally doing debates. So if I structure this strangely, please forgive me. I typically come from.
Okay, so just to bring it up and just to have that discussion, the Marx criticism of capitalism was not that capitalism, I don't like it because I'm poor. It's structural issues that happen in capitalism. You can't get around it. You can explain, well, people don't make it because they're lazy, or people don't make it because they're smart. But there are structural issues in capitalism that causes people to fucking lose. If it's truly survival of the fittest, yes, some people that are fit survive, but what do you do about the people who can't survive in their environment that capitalism creates? Are they just supposed to die? But let's continue.
I read Capital when you played a clip earlier of me kicking myself in the nuts. That is me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I was in the background. I didn't even know. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I come from comedy. I don't come from like a severely academic background. But at the same time, I don't come to this from really a particularly moralistic background as well. I read Capital a few years ago after something happened in 2011 where the media. I was fighting with a gossip blogger. The gossip blogger printed this story that was untrue about me. And the media actually picked that up. And that kind of defined my ability to interact online. So you'll probably see some of that in the chat. There are people.
Okay, yeah, and we've all heard the story if we looked up Peter Coffin. He was catfish, but people actually took it a different way. And effectively, it was his words against somebody else. But it was catfish, and from what he says, and at worst, the whole cancel culture is bullshit. But let's continue.
People who will bring that up.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I don't care.
But I sort of wondered to myself, why is there such a power difference between, what I say and what this media, Gawker specifically was who said it. Why do they have the kind of power that I don't? Like, I'm saying the thing that, like, it's equally as, like, it's equal as far as, like, how much evidence is presented. There was no evidence on my side. It was just my word. There was no evidence on the other side. It was a gossip blogger's word. And that kind of led me down this path to sort of questioning power structure, more so than just like capital, because I didn't come from a capitalist critical background in any way, shape, or form.
I'm super curious, just for the sake of memes, just to
yeah, we can go through all of that crap if you want to.
No,
as long as you're neutral about it.
Yeah, no, I don't even care. I've been involved with so much drama myself with this, whatever. But like, let's say that this was our power. If Gawker would have been some socially owned cooperative, like, it would still have all the same power, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, but it's also
actually no. If you didn't have the fucking profit motive that we build inside of companies of profit over no matter what, maybe there would have been a difference in the way we handle news and corporate in actual reflections of conversations with news. Quite literally, we have a system in place where we sensationalize things for the news just to get those clicks, to get those views. Maybe if we didn't have, hey, let's make as much profit as we can selling ad space or selling time in eyeballs, maybe a lot of news we wouldn't get. Maybe different information we would get. But let's continue.
Invested more heavily in the status quo than than anything else would be. Like, okay, so
But if the
let's say
status quo was socialism, I mean, it would be.
okay, so I guess the difference
What do
here
you think
is
of the right
if it's
libertarian
a
meme that
socially
Civil
owned
War is
cooperative,
coming?
then at every level of the decision making, potentially we could have a vote. Now, whether or not that means the outcome is different, I can't tell you, but it does provide a lot more opportunities for an actual democratic
But when
outcome.
you say every level of decision making has a vote, that's even in socialism, that's not true.
No, well, that's exactly why I said there's a lot of different forms of socialism. And if I'm just going to start here, then we end up talking about a lot of different things. And
Sure, but like
I'm
even
perfectly
in
comfortable talking about that.
just to be very clear, like there's no form of socialism that would have every employee voting on every
No,
single
no.
decision made by the business, right? That would just it's not
Well, I
feasible.
mean, that depends. That really does depend. If you're going to talk about, say, a liquid democracy or a more, I actually shouldn't get that. Requires me to start defining terms that.
All right, so you can tell that Peter just no dog. You're. This is not your strong suit to go back and forth because you do need to monologue, and that's not saying anything. Fuck, I need to monologue, but you can just tell that Destiny is peppering with information about what about this, what about this, what about this, versus just addressing that. Yeah, when you take out the profit motive above all else, you get different results, and that's the key takeaway of this start of this conversation. But let's continue.
I didn't come prepared to talk about
Sure.
intensely. But I will say, let's say there were 3 more decisions, or 2 or 1, just more decisions democratically, then we're talking about a lot more people's interests. We're talking about a lot more power. The power is distributed in a way that is just absolutely not when Gawker is owned by capital, when it's owned by shareholders or run by a board or et cetera, et cetera. Like you have a few people voting and they vote once and they may not make every decision. You're 100% right. There's probably going to be delegated activities.
Sure, but like, real quick into this. Okay, I'm sorry because I love you, but I get roasted so hard all the time for my takes on socialism. Okay, so this is all intensely interesting to me. So, first of all,
I'm perfect. It's perfectly fine. Ask any question you want.
Okay.
I may not have an answer,
sure,
but
so
yeah.
Firstly, so I have to ask: is your version of socialism a for-profit version or a non-for-profit version?
I'm a non-for-profit,
okay,
but
so
I
you're
am
talking
also a
some
libertarian socialist.
So you know that there's different forms of socialism. It's almost as if you understand what the fuck is going on, but you actively want to make it seem different. I don't. All right, let's keep going. Let's just keep going.
Okay, so you're talking for some sort of planned market then, if you're not working for profit, like some sort of.
Well, that I'm more of, if you want me to get really, really explicit, I'm more along the lines of an anarcho-communist. I wouldn't call myself that specifically, but I would say that I trend in that area.
Okay,
I come from the more like contract-oriented, exchange of goods and services, products, labor, etc.
Okay. I just don't see how organizing this company in a different fashion, like the issue that you have with the company of people being susceptible to sensationalist headlines, of people publishing false and misleading information, like this seems to be like part of the human condition and not intrinsic or baked into any sort of like economic system. I just don't see how having more oversight.
I agree with you that it's not baked into any specific economic system, but what we have in the form of headlines and all of this at the moment represents a much smaller pool of power, a much smaller amount of people. If we did actually have it to where these things were democratically owned, I'm not saying that the outcome is automatically different, but potentially speaking, we are talking about a lot more people's interests. And if people are on autopilot, sure, I'm not going to dispute the idea that it's possible that misinformation can exist one way or the other. However, we do arrange it in a way, if we're talking about the kind of more justification-based hierarchies, or in theory, and I'd keep in mind, I very much say in theory here, an actual flat hierarchy that's maybe organized in a more web-oriented way, those types.
All right, so let's just break down some of the things. So the contention is, well, even if you say that there were the system was different, again, would it be real different? And I would argue yes, yes. You said it. Would it be as much sensationalism? Yes. You want to know why? Because sensationalism brings profit. Now, I am not somebody who actually says all profits are bad, but excessive profits. We don't have a system where, well, somebody may be productive to the company by 50, or maybe by 100, and we're gonna pay them 75. No, motherfuckers, that's not how shit works. When it comes down to it, the compensation that most companies make for their employees in payroll is fucking 3 times of what the employee brings in. 3 times. And that's with everything. So miss me on that bullshit. Miss me on that bullshit. When you actually hear people say, well, if it's no profit, then the companies can't make money. And you just don't want to have any profit whatsoever. No, you're right. I don't want too much exploitative profit. And people can do that. But you know what? And this is one of the things that like really gets me. There are people who are fine with the status quo because they think, no, people are naturally good. And then you have people who are, starry-eyed socialists who say, no, people are naturally bad, and so all capitalists are bad. I tend to think people are fucking people, have the capability of both good and bad. So why not? Why not set some guidelines and some boundaries and some fucking handrails for them? Because sooner or later you're gonna get that motherfucker who's gonna be a totalitarian, who's gonna be an ideologue, who's gonna be a demagogue, and is gonna want to fucking run the system because they have holes in their heart. But let's continue.
Types of things. You end up with a lot more input from a lot more people. Now, does that mean nobody can seize power? Does that mean nobody can be an ideologue or a demagogue or anything like that? No, I think that's not stuff that you can answer by changing the economic system.
Do you think that people in today's society, do you think people will generally converge on to like truthful or societally beneficial things?
I think societally beneficial, but I'm not.
How do you explain, like, for instance, the existence of the Republican Party, if that was true?
Okay, so I can explain the existence of the Republican Party because they've told people, and not everyone thinks the same fucking way. Yes, it can be beneficial for us to be in a more socialistic system, but there are people that are told that if you give up some of your power, then you're going to end up on the fucking bottom. And they believe the lie. They believe that no matter what, shit is going to all come down if you go up that motherfucking ladder. That's a thing for people. That is quite literally a thing where people actually believe that if certain people, certain classes of people actually get power, then you're screwed. Which is fucking ironic because the last time I checked, they benefit from a change in power that was fucking feudalism. And before that, times of fucking warlords. But let's continue.
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of financial interest that sort of drives a lot of the Republican Party. And I'm not just saying like that goes away or anything. However, the power structure as it is benefits more from the Republican Party and has benefited more from the Republican Party.
Wouldn't somebody counter your argument and just say that you just want to create your own self-perpetuating power structure that will reinforce itself, though? Like if you had some planned economy or whatever, that would play into people necessarily having opinions that are positive about that? Like,
Well,
So let me answer this shit before. It goes back to the fucking video that I did the other day. A lot of these people who actually resist a changing of the system that we have now is you just want to be at the top. They can't generally understand that sometimes you want to do shit for other people with the only thing that you get out of it is self satisfaction that you fucking help somebody. It's like I don't get it. Maybe they don't get it. Maybe they don't understand that, you know, maybe we aren't some kind of fucking team of fucking herd animals where we have to have an alpha and betas and all this other good bullshit. Maybe that's a fucking thing. Maybe we can have a little bit more equal distribution of power. It is fucking ironic because I see people who claim that no, everybody got their place when they quite literally would have been in a shitty place 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But no, those people that are below me now, they need to stay below me because I'm holding on to what I have right now by a thread. But let's continue.
see, that's the whole idea of a participatory system where people actually do have more, because we have a republic at the moment. We have a representative democracy, supposedly. It's flawed.
Well,
but,
to be clear, hold on. Well, just to be clear, America does have
sure,
a
yeah.
representative democracy. As far as I know, our elections do have integrity. We do vote for our leaders. Everybody that's there is there because somebody voted for them. That's my understanding of it. But okay, go ahead.
Well,
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What? Shut the fuck up! Now, this is the centrist argument. This is the argument that no, everything is okay, everything is fine, and no, the system is okay. This is one of the reasons why I see so many socialists just people that tend to anarcho communists actually are so fucking set against centrists because dude, we get it. You are doing well. You're doing quite well being somebody who has made a living off of this. And I'm definitely not trying to take your place. But you have to recognize that not everyone is doing well. You have to recognize that for some people, when they go and vote, they are disenfranchised. You have to recognize that there are things in this fucking political system that we have where people have literally wrote through Supreme Court justices that money is speech. And you know what that means? The person that has the more money has more speech. That's bullshit. And for you to say that our government is working great, come on, man. Are you blind to what other people actually suffer? Are you blind to the constraints that other people have? I know you're smarter than this, but let's continue.
yeah, but then if we start to bring in, gerrymandering and voter suppression and those types of things, we do have flaws. It's not as though it is, yeah. And the way I see it is we have a lot of misinformation that is the only information presented. Like you have large amounts of money that is spent to ensure that certain information is withheld, certain information is presented. And I sincerely doubt you have an argument against that. I don't think that we're probably on a different side as far as that goes.
No, but this is kind of the central point of my argument with Ben, is I definitely see that there are some flaws related to the way that our society functions today. I just don't see how some theoretical socialist system would stop this. People still have their own interests that they're going to be representing and pushing to other people, unless you want to get into some pretty extreme positions of banning all advertising or something.
Well, here's the thing about that. If we ban advertising, then what we're basically doing is banning expression. Now, unfortunately, advertising is it's an expression of power. It's something that somebody with power has paid to put out there. So, I mean, you could say in theory, yes, we can ban that, but ultimately there's going to be ways to get around that one way or the other, as long as we have free expression. I don't think we want to sacrifice that.
So, Peter just brought up a great point. The fact that in the system that we have now, in the very system that we have now, we do have gerrymander. We do have people who are disenfranchised from voting. This is something that is happening now, not some theoretical thing, not something that's not really happening. You actually see it happening now, and quite literally, quite literally, for you to ignore that means that you're ignoring the suffering or the plight of other people. Why though? Why does that have to be a thing where you think that, well, it's just the way the system is? Come on, man. Come on. It's not how the system has to be. It's not the way the system just is. But let's continue.
No, I think that no, that's not really the route to take.
Do you think that right now, today in the United States, do you think that people vote against their own interests sometimes?
Oh, I certainly do. But I also think that that is the result of, we're scapegoating, immigrants for so many things. We're scapegoating various different races. We're scapegoating, X
Okay, if you think that
economic
people
group.
are susceptible to all of these problems, why did you take so much issue with me saying that right now in the U.S. workers are dumb?
Well.
Okay, so here's, and this is a crux of the argument that I have. It's falls into that whole, well, people deserve the place because they should be smarter. Quite literally, that's the hill you're gonna die on, man. That's the hill you're gonna die on. That people should just know better, and if they don't know better, well, they're just dumb. That's literally what we're doing. If we're gonna do that, that's fine. Just say we're gonna do that, and then we can have that discussion going on from there. But don't fix your mouth to say that, well, our system is perfect, but the people that's in it are not perfect, but that's okay because it's their fault. Don't. Now, I can give you some motherfucking things to actually draw umbrage with. Maybe we need to have a better informed electorate. Fuck, not maybe. We do need to have a better informed direct electorate. We do. That is something that we need to fucking do. But let's continue.
Because it seems like you kind of agree with me.
And uneducated.
Okay.
I guess, that's kind of the thing. Like, when I say dumb, what that means is, you're inherently dumb. Not like your situation provides context that ensures you can't see this thing or withhold.
This kind of feels like the race realist argument. Like, do you really think...
Does it?
Well, yeah, do you think, or I don't know what level, I mean, I imagine I have no charitability on Twitter at this point, but, when I say someone is dumb, do you think that did you really think I meant that someone is, intrinsically, by virtue of their entity, incapable of ever learning or becoming educated on some topic, that they're actually, defined as dumb, that these are, genome sequences that are, forever destroying their brains from working,
No, but at the same time, you don't have a context on Twitter, and therefore when people are using words like dumb, it does imply a less charitable intent than just the idea that there is power at play that is withholding or boosting certain information that changes the context that somebody maybe socially exists in.
Okay.
It implies a certain viewpoint to say dumb rather than to say uneducated or ignorant. Whether or not you 100% meant they are biologically determinist, quote unquote dumb, it implies a leaning towards a less charitable prescription for why they don't have the information.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's that is key. That is key. Now, when and I don't think he's actually ever fully explained this. And I may only do an hour today, guys, because this is a video and I'm stopping it well too much. But it is not charitable, and I get that it's definitely not charitable about how Destiny does bring up the fact that he believes that people are dumb. And I really don't know of a way of making it sound any form of fashion charitable. It just quite literally says, "Well, they're dumb because they're dumb." But let's let's let him explain.
Yeah, I can see that on Twitter. I mean, I would say that if you're familiar with anything else I've ever said or done, obviously you know that I know
I'm
that there's
not
something else. But
terribly,
yeah,
to be
sure, I
honest.
can understand
So.
that. I'm not sure if I would have said. I wish I could rewind the clock because I feel like if I would say like workers are uneducated, I feel like I would have gotten the exact same pushback, but people would have been complaining that like,
You
oh,
would.
so you
I
think?
will say you wouldn't get it from me.
Okay,
I absolutely would not push back if it had been educated. But dumb, it does. It just implies a less charitable position, in
sure.
my opinion, anyway.
Okay. I don't. I guess I don't. I don't. I mean, I don't know. We can go like these are all very general arguments. I'm not under the
Sure.
impression, or
Yeah.
I don't agree that like democratically running like every part of society would necessarily produce better outcomes for people in society. I don't know
Hmm.
if like the average person is capable of making like decisions that would lead to things being beneficial for everyone in society because
Well,
they're
I
and
guess.
So, and again, it goes to this whole conversation about how, well, some people just deserve their lot in life. Now, trust me, I am somebody who harps on the fact that people should be more curious about the situation, should be more curious about how the world works. I get it, and I know that there are people who will never be that fucking curious about anything other than, can I fuck it, can I eat it, or can it entertain me? I fucking get that. There are people who just think that way. But the illness on us, just as we expect people to sit at a motherfucking table and have some form of fucking table manners, the illness is also on us to make sure that people actually live up to their potential of being able to know, being able to fully participate in the system of governance that we have, to make sure that everybody, everyone is turning out, turn is living in a better fucking society. God damn, is that so hard to fucking understand? Is that so hard to fucking get? But let's continue.
My question there is, why not?
so I'm not going to say because people are dumb. I'm going to say because people are generally uneducated. But the reality of the situation is that like people, I think most people just want to work, go to work, and then come home, and then they either want to go and hang out with friends, or they want to spend time with their family, and then they want to go to sleep.
Sure.
They don't want to open YouTube or Twitter or go to Google Scholar and start reading like on the dangers of climate change. Like these are issues that just most people just don't care about. They just want to work their job, they just want to have fun, and they want to live their lives. I don't know if I would want to trust a person like that to decide like, hey, do you think we should raise the federal funds rate, or is quantitative easing not the best way forward for United States monetary policy? Like, I don't know if I'd want an average person voting that, or like, hey, like should we export part of our supply chain to Mexico so that we can sell more cars, or like I don't know if like an average person can make a good decision about that. This person is going to be susceptible to so much propaganda.
Everybody is susceptible to so much fucking propaganda. Fuck, you are susceptible to propaganda. Not you're not no better. You're not any better than these people. The fact that you really think, the fact that you really think that you're more informed than what they are, shows more about your arrogance than theirs who think that they could do it, but they're just not doing it well enough. Come on, man. Do you hear what you're fucking saying? But let's continue.
Depending on who has their ear.
Well, I guess that sort of, provides an argument for me, the idea that we shouldn't be allowing the centralization of power with, capital. I feel like the more you own, the more likely you are to be spreading that propaganda. And maybe if you have more personal affects rather than private property that you're running enterprise on, and you're not conglomerating and collecting capital, the likelihood of you being able to actually dictate the information that leads those people down X rabbit hole or Y, path.
All right, guys. So since we're listening to this, I'm gonna try to go to the city of the relic hunters and see if I can get me either a name thrall somewhere, because right now I need that journey to eat up time and to fucking get some more actual, let my thralls cook more. Maybe I can get a name cook, maybe. But yeah, and I need that one thrall to cook so I can actually put him in this wheel of pain. But let's continue.
Towards white supremacy or what have you. I feel like it's not necessarily a cure for that, but like it's much, much harder for, when we all have closer to an equal amount of power for that to happen.
So this is just something that I can push back against like almost everything you said. So firstly,
Sure.
in terms of incentive, capital is just one incentive for trying to convince somebody of something else, right? If I'm trying to convince a girl that we should go home and have sex, it's not because I'm like leveraging capital to do that or whatever. It's because there's something that I want and I have a
I would
personal
disagree
drive
with that. You're actually leveraging social capital, and if you've
Okay, that's fine.
displayed sort of,
Yeah, if we want to say social capital, that's fine. Okay, well, in that case, people in a democratically voted workplace are going to have managers and leaders, right? You have to. Just
Sure.
because you're in a democratic workplace doesn't mean that everybody is the same kind of employee, and people even get paid more
Correct.
depending on your organization. So you are going to have some sort of union leader, some sort of worker leader that's been voted on. That guy will have more social capital than other people, and he has all of the incentives to push the same type of either anti or pro whatever propaganda that he wants to based on what he thinks is right, the same way that a
Sure,
capital owner
but
would as well.
well, here's the other problem with that is if you are in a situation where it's an actual democracy, then that person's power is significantly more revocable than any person's power in the arrangement we have today.
Sure.
So yes, this is the thing, and this is one of the reasons why worker-owned co-ops are actually a thing that can actually help benefit fucking democracy. And you see the hesitation of the, oh yeah, sure, because that is quite literally what somebody who has capital is afraid of, that the workers can actually revolt. So you have to actually give concessions. And now, I am not saying that capital should always give concessions and be in totally at the beck and whim of their workers. But it should be. It should be a conflict. It should be an uneasy arrangement for both fucking parties. Because both parties need each other. When you start thinking that you don't need the other person to fucking make to have what you need, that's when you run into problems. That's why in the 70s, so many people actually, you saw a drive in inflation the way you did, because the sides became unbalanced. There should always be a fucking conflict. Through conflict, you understand boundaries. And that's the thing. There should be always a conflict. Excuse me while I fucking kill some shit for their eggs.
But it still doesn't escape at all from the incentive structure that this person might have to push certain types of agendas.
Okay, well, here's the problem with the incentive structure, though. Like when we're starting to talk about, like, if we exist in this other system that doesn't have like an official market of any sort, it doesn't have the same price setting and value setting mechanism. Sorry. My question is, how does that incentive structure apply to this situation that is totally removed from that?
Wait, what do you mean? That was a lot of pronouns. Sorry. Can you explain?
Yeah, I apologize. So you talk about the incentive structure, the financial incentive structure. If we were talking about a contract-based, moneyless exchange of, anarcho-communism type situation, I fail to understand how all of these financial incentives translate over to that. And that's my question here.
It might not necessarily be a financial incentive since we've removed that form of capital. It could be other forms of social capital. Sure. So say, for instance, say you have a leader of the workers who's been voted on, and he's friends with somebody that works at another plant, and you're trying to decide who you should purchase, or I guess in your system barter for goods for, in order to create some product or whatever. Like maybe this guy that's been voted on the workers kind of pushes you off towards some other thing because he's friends with a guy that works there, or because he, I don't know, like there's like, I mean, like all of these things are ripe for abuse in a million different ways. I'm not saying that capitalism isn't, it absolutely is. I just don't like the idea of here's like a system that we have right now that to some degree works for sure, but I'm suggesting a purely, I don't want to say fantastical,
but it doesn't work for everyone. It works for a select few. That's what I don't get about this whole conversation. Yeah, it works for a select few, but not everyone. It is no reason why we produce 140% of the food and substances that we need, that we have more vacant homes than we have homeless. But yet and still, they're still fucking homeless. What, people won't appreciate a house because they didn't work hard for it? They didn't spend a third of their day trying to fucking accomplish it? So they won't appreciate that? Get that shit out of here. Let's continue.
But highly removed from where we're currently at system, and I don't even
well,
know if that's
the whole thing. We want to be removed. That's the thing. I want to be removed from what is, I think, an inherently inequitable system. Like when we allow capital to continue to centralize its power, to continue to accumulate capital, there's more and more of the ability for them to roll back any progress that has been made by, let's say, progressives and social programs, or etc., like civil rights. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Isn't that kind of like, I mean, if we believe in some form of moral realism and we believe that we're working towards some morally perfect world, wouldn't most people say that?
I don't know. That's the thing.
No, that's not relevant. What I'm saying, but like, if we did believe that, wouldn't we say that we've been like making moral progress as a country?
And so that's the key thing. When you set up an argument and it doesn't fit the guidelines of what you fucking want to actually build that structure of, hey, capitalism says we should have this, capitalism says we should have that, and the fact that it doesn't, you're just, when we set the norms a specific way, yeah, if you give an equation certain amount of variables, you're always going to get this fucking answer. But if we don't start off with those base assumptions, well, that's just the way things are, you tend to actually come out with a better situation in a lot of cases when you're trying to see what fucking works, not just for you, but for everybody. But let's continue.
Country though, like capital has been concentrated into the hands of fewer people. Capital is becoming more efficient, yet gay people can get married, we have abortion for now, black people were typically doing a little bit better.
So, but that's the thing, that's not a staple, that's not thanks to capitalism, that's fucking thanks to the fact that it was social pressure to fucking change the system. That's what that's thanks to. But let's continue.
better. We don't have slaves. We have civil rights. Like, we're treating trans people
Yeah,
better.
but
Like,
why?
Okay, slavery was facilitated by capitalism. It wasn't that, oh well, people just found it was cheaper to not have slaves. It actually was beneficial to capitalism to have slaves. Come on, guy. Come on, you're smarter than this. But I guess you're not because people are dumb. Let's continue.
Why do we have those things though? We've made markets for consumption based around those things. Like, a gay wedding is a wedding. A wedding is incredibly expensive, involves a lot of service workers, involves a lot of products, and there's a reason why it's normalized, it's accepted. You can get invited to it. You don't think it's weird, and people 50 years ago did think it's weird. So, I mean, a market has been created for consumption in that, and
yeah,
it's
but I
not
mean,
just because gay people, are equal, because they aren't equal in this society. They had to continually prove that they were okay.
sure, which they've had to. But I mean, it's not like there have been like these egalitarian socialist societies in the past that where all of these progressive issues have been brought to the forefront and everybody is treated equally and all the gay people and all the Jewish people and everybody are all loved by the state as well, right? Like, it seems like this is more
Sure,
like
but you could argue there's never been a state like that, though.
Exactly. Just because, it hasn't happened before, it will never happen. And I'm not even saying that it should be in a state of perpetual utopia. No, it is a conflict. It is something that you always fucking fight for. It is something that you have to keep going on. But let's continue.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, like, you just gave me unironically, you just gave me the Republican argument for ending racism. You just said, like, well, actually, there are financial incentive. Well, because I argue against people about the cake bakery. I argue we should have protected classes in the U.S. because there is financial incentive sometimes to discriminate against people. And you just told me, well, actually, markets fix these problems because they give you new consumers, that's like the hardcore Republican argument for why capitalism fixes racism and shit.
Well, it's my opinion that, you find, and this is going to be the thing that I say that probably sounds the most quote unquote centricity this entire time, but a lot of the arguments that Republicans will end up making end up having some kind of like concern that could be construed as real. But it never actually leads back to some sort of actual democratic thing that they're saying. It's always like kind of a smokescreen. And I'm sorry, I've sort of lost exactly what I was saying. But ultimately, I think that these are arguments that they're ultimately co-opted. Like the idea that markets solve that type of thing. I agree there should be protected classes, but I only think that there should be protected classes because there is a huge state. There's a huge state that basically picks and chooses what's okay, and I think that is wrong. I think that capital functions in a similar way. I think that when you have this massive centralization of power, you have all of these people picking and choosing what is okay, and I think that that's ultimately the problem. And I think that markets exacerbate that problem rather than solve it, because I think that markets are a tool for centralizing that power. They're a tool for rooting out the most effective market tactic or mechanic. And I think that ultimately that doesn't necessarily mean best. That means most profitable or that type of a thing. And I guess that's where I'm going with that.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like we could drill down on like any one.
All right, so, and I'm gonna stop at 9. I'm gonna give it to 9. Hopefully, I can finish it by then. He's actually right. A lot of it is, yes, markets actually try to get for the most profit, but it's like that episode of The Simpsons where you see Milhouse's father was like, well, we don't know if single people eats crackers, and we don't want to lose business because these people that are single may not like crackers. And it's just like it was always that argument that, hey, you may actually get woke, but you'll go broke. Quite literally, we have seen that happen for many of different things. Now, is it always a cry, or is it always the cry of everybody? But it is a lot of the cry of people, especially people that are concerned about quote unquote keeping the status quo. But let's continue.
One of these issues, and
I'm perfectly fine with doing that. Like I'm not. If you don't want to go on forever, I don't mind. I'm more than happy to talk with you more, and I appreciate you not being combative or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not generally combative when I talk about. I'm not like screaming at people. Although
Yeah,
I will say, like,
I definitely appreciate that.
It's a little bit like, it's very strange to me, or maybe you can empathize a little bit. It's very frustrating for me that when I tweet something that I consider to be pretty factually correct and pretty on point, I get a lot of pushback right now from progressives that will relentlessly shit in my mouth for everything I say. And then generally when I bring on somebody to talk, it's like, well, I don't really disagree with anything you say. It's like, okay, well, it's very strange because on Twitter, and I think I've done this like 3 or 4 or 5 times now, where I've brought on something, like, okay, well, what exactly have I said that you disagree with? And it's like, well, actually, I don't disagree with anything. And then it's like, okay, well, that's interesting. Like,
Okay, so that's a fucking straw man. You've actually quite literally seen or had the conversation of what people disagree with you on. Come on, man. You're smarter than that. You know better. You know better, motherfucker. But let's continue.
I don't know. That's just, but.
Well, okay, let me go ahead and say this. Like,
sure.
Twitter sucks ass.
I don't agree, though. I think it feels like political camps. It feels like people have their political tribes, and they shut their brain off, and they just kind of like participate. Yeah.
I wrote a book called Custom Reality in You. It's basically about more of a materialist analysis of what people like to call echo chambers in a lot of respects. And personally, it matters a lot to me that we sort of have these, like, it ultimately, I feel, comes back, again, to consumption and markets. Each of these groups, I believe, is kind of this little market where we've sussed out, this little thing that we can commodify and sort of present to people as if it's wonderful and amazing. And it's always one-dimensional. It's nothing. It's like a single issue or a single aspect of an issue. And it's presented as an image, and we have to take the most two-dimensional version of it. And we have to follow the thought leaders, so to speak. And that, in my opinion, is what brings us to the situation where, if I'm saying stuff that you agree with, I'm glad. That's awesome. If I'm saying stuff that you don't agree with, I'm perfectly happy to talk to you about that kind of stuff. Okay. But in my opinion, like, Twitter is kind of, it separates into camps because you have a lot of different sort of consumption demographics. And
so, yeah, this is actually true about all social media. Social media has been, I almost say this, algorithmatized, but it's been so tailor-made to how people feel that they should have a response for social media to be. And, yeah, you get a mixture of things, but, and, yeah, there are quite literally in Twitter, it is mostly a dumpster fire because it's just that people aren't talking with each other. They're talking at each other. And that doesn't foster a conversation. That just fosters, well, I'm right about what I'm saying and you can't fucking directly question me. You have to wait for the next 160 characters or 158 characters. Whatever the fuck it is. But let's continue.
In my opinion, consumer demographics, sorry. Mm-hmm. And they sort of have self segregated, in my opinion. And this is basically where I think that there is actually kind of this is my shit that I'm always talking about most of the time, more so than just like, hey, co-ops are the best thing. I criticize sort of capitalism as it exists in our social lives more so than anything else. And I don't know. I feel like this is a manifestation of capitalism, exactly what you're talking about. I sympathize very much. Like, I criticize the left fairly often because I tend to look at, certain aspects of things that are going on Twitter, and I say to myself, what are you really doing? You're kind of just being an asshole to this one specific individual. And I'm sorry I've begun to curse so much, but
no, it's okay.
That's okay. But that's, in my opinion, it's a manifestation of the sort of biggest fan or lifestyle marketing or any of these various things. Like, this is my team, this is my party, my this, my that, whatever. It's all been, sort of charted as a consumptive path. And I'm not necessarily criticizing the people who do it, because I feel like it's kind of the only rational outcome to what we've been presented in our lives. But it's just fundamentally unproductive. And
All right, so just to talk about it, if you haven't seen it, uh, Peter Coffin does do a lot of commentary about how they're basically the mob mentality that you see with the different things with fucking social media, and it's not fucking cool. It is not fucking cool at all. Let's see if I can actually bean her ass. Alright, cool. But first, let's kill this archer. But, yeah. Oh, shit. God damn it. Damn it! Alright, start in the desert. But, yeah, let's continue.
and I'm happy that we're actually able to talk here, where we can have some sort of a civil version of this conversation. I completely sympathize with the idea that people are assholes to you on Twitter.
Okay. Well, I guess, then, is there anything that we actually disagree with that we need to go over? Or
it may be, there may not be. I don't know. I'm perfectly happy to have long form conversations where I'll answer any kind of question that I can't guarantee, like I said, that I'll have an answer. I tend to stick in the more social areas of this stuff, but I sympathize. But at the same token, that's what I wanted really to get out of this, is just where you're coming from with the way that you sort of go at leftists on Twitter. I'm not saying that you don't believe anything you say,
the place that I come from is usually I want people to have conversations that are rooted in reality. That's usually what I read.
Yeah.
So when Bernie bros get on and say
viewpoint.
like all the polls are lying and Bernie is actually the most popular, or when people get on and they start making fantastical claims about capitalism, like when AOC doesn't understand what stock buybacks are, why they work, or when people say like, well, these policies, Americans love them and all the polling data says otherwise, like these are usually the things that I push back against. And usually if it runs counter to the progressive agenda, they get like really, really, really upset.
Well, there's some aspects of...
All right, and so, yeah, if you want to actually say, hey, these are the facts, this is some of the things that we should fucking argue, and, you can't really have, you have to go with this set of data, but by the same token, you also can't say, well, this shit works out well because reasons, when it doesn't. Doesn't always work out well for everybody. But let's continue.
I think media representation of polling data that can be influenced. But, there is, if you actually go to the polls, there's a very specific set of numbers. And, I can't attest to exactly how you've personally represented them, but I have to imagine that a lot of people haven't actually, looked at it. And I'm not saying that's a leftist thing or like an MSNBC viewers thing or whatever. I think that a lot of people don't actually read data. But I have a feeling you don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I guess I don't necessarily disagree. I don't know. I've seen you tweet this as well. Whether or not you support Bernie Sanders, you should be extremely concerned with the clear data manipulation.
If you look at the actual data in that article, like there are several notices where for instance, in one of the polls, they actually changed the numbers to say that Joe Biden had 3 more points than he did, which, it could be a mistake. It could be an intentional misrepresentation. I don't know. But there are points where there is actually questionable media representation of the data.
Okay. Do you think, I'm curious, do you think that Biden is legitimately ahead of Bernie in the polls right now? That more
Oh,
Democrats...
yes, I definitely do. I absolutely do.
Okay.
Do I think that every single poll is represented properly? No, but I think that at this moment, Biden has a lot of name recognition. He's very heavily associated with Barack Obama, and Barack Obama is very heavily associated with the times before the worst times. And I guess that kind of, in my opinion, it's very specifically beneficial for him, to where if he doesn't do anything that's outright bad, it's going to take a lot more to sort of bring him down in the polls than I think that a lot of people think.
Do you think that Bernie doesn't have a lot of name recognition? Like, you know that he ran his own
I think that
campaign
he
for
has more
presidency for
this
like
time.
6 months.
Yeah, I think that he's got, if you look at the poll of like individual donors, for instance, Bernie Sanders just absolutely, look that one up. That one's pretty wild. He just like has the most donors in the United States by far.
Yeah, I've seen the maps. They look similar to the ones that Trump supporters were posted to show that Trump had the most widespread support because it drew from a lot of rural communities that had very...
So, and this is actually getting into the politics, the weeds of the politics. And I'm sorry if I'm not stopping it as quickly as I want to, guys. I am trying to fucking fight for my life, but it is actually getting into the weeds of the conversation where, polls are a funny fucking thing, and you should trust but verify polls, because there are certain things inside of polls where you kind of want to kind of look at, but that's why you should actually take so many aggregates of polls and see where that language and see where those things come from. Well, let's continue.
very low amounts of population. It's a pretty misleading map to make it look... Well, but I'm kind of disagreeing with the way that this is framed. Like, Bernie has a lot of donors, sure, but the whole point of using a geographic map to try to graph, like, somebody's support is an incredibly misleading thing to do, because rural areas are...
That's fair.
Okay.
I guess that's not really what I'm saying, though. I'm not saying, like, he has more support. I'm saying he has more more recognition this time around than the previous time, I guess, is what my ultimate point is. And also, Donald Trump did win the election, to be fair.
Yeah?
I mean, he didn't win by popular vote, and that's another, like, massive issue that I feel like there's not really an easy solution for. I mean, there is an easy solution, but it involves changing a lot of very intrinsic things about how that election is set up.
Okay, and so when you say... Okay.
Well, in order to...
Wait, okay, hold on, listen. I love you so much, okay? This is... I do this so much, and it makes me want to commit suicide in a video game, okay? So, like, I have gotten so much pushback on Twitter lately from so many people that say my takes are extreme, my takes are shit, blah, 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 blah. But every time, and I dealt with this exact same issue when I was debating the alt-right or conservatives constantly. People would say, Destiny, you use bad debate tactics, blah, blah, blah. I'd pull them on and be like, what do I do that's so disingenuous? What do I do that's wrong? And then when they come on, they become the most cordial. Well, I didn't mean it, and blah, 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 and everything's fine, you know? And now, so like, for instance, like, so like you've tweeted at me and you've said that like I'm a conservative grifter, which is
I
pretty
did say
extreme.
Yeah,
that I run
I took the bait.
grift.
Like I said, I took the bait.
But I don't even think I was necessarily baiting. Like,
it felt like it. Like I said, context makes things bad. And you know, I'm not going to say that, like, at the moment I didn't mean that, but we are talking about Twitter.
Okay.
We are talking about a point where there's a lot of context removed, and when you see, like, somebody saying, what was the tweet that you said that I responded to that with?
I'm pretty sure it was the idea that I would debate Bernie bros or whatever about their progressive policies all day, but I ended up making them look worse than conservatives. And so far, that seems to have held true. When I bring on Bernie bros to debate about policy points, I'm hoping I've got a conversation with Michael Brooks scheduled in a couple days. I'm hoping this one goes a lot better, but...
Well, sure. Like, I guess...
All right.
My thought here, then...
That conversation from the response that happened, holy shit. I saw the post-mortem that he talked about it with David Packman. Holy shit, that was an interesting ass conversation. But let's continue.
First off, let me just say sorry for calling you conservative, Griffith.
No, that's okay.
But like, to be fair, like on Twitter, there's a lot of context removed, and this is why I say Twitter is kind of a piece of shit hell site. You know, I see, you know, whenever I see your tweets, it's usually because they've been passed around in, let's say, a
Lefty
leftist
circles.
area.
Yeah.
And they're recontextualized in that there's nothing else said. So to be fair, like what we end up having here is like, well, here's another thing where he's beating on leftists for no reason. And you know, yeah, I'm sorry for that. Like, clearly, like you've been having a very patient and open-minded conversation with me, and I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I understand. I'm trying to dial it back a little bit since apparently.
Oh no! Don't you don't need to dial it back with me. I'll tend to.
All right, so we're gonna let this actually finish and play out while I try to beat this motherfucking brute. But I want to thank everybody who's watching, and I may be doing another video with Destiny. Maybe if I see that Michael Brooks video. But as for right now, I want to thank everybody who's watched. And please, please remember, it's not just the way things are. Fucking ask why. Always question the way things are and what we can do to change it, make it better, or just fucking help your fellow fucking man. Peace.